All right, everybody. How's it going? Facebook Live again. Uh, we're gonna start a new series. We'll see what the response is, and go from there. It looks like Facebook is building an audience for me, so we will see what happens. Um, but I recently discovered the Asian market on Division Street, and it's been there for years. I never ended up stopping in there. So now that I've been there many times, I've kind of picked out some of my new favorite stuff, and I'm going to review an item for you. And if this is popular enough, I'll make it a regular thing. Uh, we'll see what happens. But I also thought I would suggest some great graphic novels. I recently have had a lot of people ask me about what their favorite graphic novel or what's a good graphic novel that I really like that I should check out. And River says, "You just scared me. I was on Facebook and your face just popped in on up on my screen." I'm watching you, River, and I saw what you were doing, and you need to stop it. Anyways, we're going to be reviewing matcha chocolate green tea flavored iced sandwich dessert. These things are amazing. They're in the freezer aisle. A quick search online says that they're pretty much available everywhere, but they are imported from Japan, and they're great. They're not that expensive. One of my favorite things to pick out. But before we do that, I'm going to make a couple of suggestions for graphic novels. The first two that I'm going to start with is Why the Last Man. Now, you can get these. It's a series of 10 graphic novels in the series. Each one's going to run you anywhere from $9 to $14. Sometimes you can even find these at your library. It's not uncommon. But the story of Why the Last Man is it starts out where there's this amulet, and when it crosses over this country line from a country that's cursed, so it can't leave this country. Once it crosses the line, every man on Earth dies. Every male of the species dies, except for one. And throughout the series, you follow him as he goes and Douglas says hi Douglas. Basically, you're following the main character as he is trying to kind of figure things out, and at the same time he becomes this wanted person because some governments want him so that he can breed with their people, and other governments want him to control him. Other people are trying to kill him because they're crazy, religious people, and they think that he's the one person stopping the end of the world. But it's written by Brian K. Vaughan, who is an amazing writer. He's written some of my favorite stuff. And Douglas says, "Great shirt." Yay! Yes, this is my Loot Crate shirt. Um, yeah, so the first graphic novel, I believe, is $9.99. You can pick this up at your local comic book shops. It's a pretty available comic because it's rightfully very popular, and I think you'll be hooked right away. It's one of those stories where it's very good at kind of making a left turn right when you think there's a flow to the story. And the other thing that's good about it is a complete story. It's a complete series, so it's not like Batman where you can read a great Batman story but then know that the story continues forever. So Shannon says, "You had me at crazy religious people. Tell me about it." Yeah, so it's a complete story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, and that's what's great about it. In a world of ongoing stories, and we're never going to see the last Iron Man comic, but there is a definitive story, and I would say it's very satisfying. I think the general consensus is that it's a very satisfying ending, and it just kind of goes to show you that Brian K. Vaughan is a great writer. So definitely recommended. Why the Last Man. The next one is a little newer series. It's called Sex Criminals, and it's written by Matt Fraction with art by Chip Zdarsky. And the premise of this is that there's two people who, I don't know if it's right to call them sex addicts, but there's a man and a woman, and they meet because whenever they have sex, they can stop time around them. And it basically kind of tells the story of how they discovered it when they were young, and you know what that meant to them kind of growing up. And then what they start doing is they basically start doing bank heists. So they'll go to a bank and go have sex in the bathroom and then rob the bank. It seems like a silly kind of premise, but it's actually just really well done, and it's really, really funny. And I think it's also just a really good kind of story about relationships, which is surprising considering that it's a, you know, fairly kind of out there thing. And I should mention, whereas Why the Last Man is very much like a PG-13 comic, I will say that in Why the Last Man there's some graphic content. There's probably some bad language. Not as graphic as anything like in Walking Dead or anything more than Walking Dead. There is some nudity, but it's used for kind of effect, especially when you're kind of telling the story of men versus women. There's kind of a good way that they integrate it. Somebody messaged me. But Sex Criminals is definitely R-rated. I mean, yeah, I guess for the right person. It's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't go give this to your 13-year-old daughter. 13-year-old son, maybe. But Why the Last Man, I think anyone maybe, 10 or 12, depending on their maturity, should be able to handle it. But Sex Criminals is definitely more of an adult book. Which brings us to our review of Matcha Japanese traditional ice dessert. So I think what drew me to these in the store was it kind of just looks like an ice cream sandwich, which it is. But as you can tell by the image, it's like a wafer over a green tea iced dessert and with a chocolate layer on the outside. So as we open it, it doesn't really have much of a smell. But as you pull it out, it's almost like you have these two little compartments. And it kind of reminds me of the old McDonald's Big Mac cases. Or I don't know if the Big Mac came in it, but they had those old McDonald's ones where I think maybe even the desserts came in and they were styrofoam. And they were basically destroying the earth. That's what they were. But as what I do is you could eat it whole. You could also even separate those. It won't be as fun because this outside layer is similar to those, what are those? Those wafer snacks. Douglas McCoy says, yes. Yeah, so the outside is similar to those little wafers. You could break those apart that way, but what I do is I break it like that. And then right away you see the green tea deliciousness. And in there you'll see a little bit of the chocolate. And River says, ooh. Why do you say ooh? It's delicious. So if I were to peel back this a little bit, you'd see the chocolate right there, which is good. The green tea is usually a fairly subtle flavor with most green tea things. Even on some of the other Japanese green tea candy that I've had before, it's a little more subtle, or it's like a little too sugary, which doesn't always go with green tea. But I'd have to say with this, the wafer is definitely apparent. It really tastes like the little wafer things that they'd have chocolate or strawberry. So that's the first thing that you taste. The chocolate's good. A lot of the Japanese chocolate is sometimes fairly, I don't know if bland's the right word, but it's maybe more of those, if you've had Japanese chocolate before, you kind of know what I mean. I probably can't explain it as well, but it's more of a chocolatey flavor than you get with some of the Japanese chocolates. But the green tea in this, it's a little interesting because you see the green color in there. Even though I've had these a few times, my mind still really, really wants this to be mint ice cream. and then the chocolate tricks your mouth as well, because you get this chocolate flavor, and then the green tea flavor is just, it's still subtle. It's not overly sweet, but it's hard to explain, but it is really like a tea flavor. So it's kind of the closest to green tea that I can imagine you'd get in like a snack, but it's still it's still not over, it's still not like the green tea candy. And Shannon says they're coming out with the Mini Max and the Mega Max. I saw that. I don't think I've had a Big Mac. I think the last time I had a Big Mac was like the mid 90s. So I guess maybe I'll have to do a review on those. We'll have to see what the fans think. The outer shell thing isn't super crisp. Again, you almost imagine it being a little crunchier. The sides are a little more kind of soft and chewy, but it is really good. River says she wants to do the next food review. You can. Let's pick out a few food, and we'll do it. And I'll bring some comic books as well. It's really good. I tried them the first time. I've definitely bought them twice now. I think it's going to become a guilty pleasure for a while. There's plenty to check out at the Asian market, so hopefully I'll do several of these reviews, and there's several comic books to recommend. And what's great is it really is kind of a substantial enough snack that you don't have to eat both sides of it, so you can kind of tuck your other little bit away and save it for later. I imagine just because of the consistency, or even just the freshness of the little wafer around the shell, it would probably get freezer burnt pretty quickly. So I would say, maybe start a movie, eat half of it when you start, and then eat halfway through. But you can tuck the other guy away and have a little treat for another time. So my next two comics that I'm going to recommend is Lock and Key. Now, some people will know this comic because it is by Joe Hill. Joe Hill is an author. I think he started or shared with a friend. River says that. River, you're so nice. Joe Hill is an author. I don't know if he started in comic books first. He has made an amazing career for himself. And I would say that if you like suspense books or horror books, he has a couple of great ones. One that I recommend is called Heart-Shaped Box. He also did Horns, which they made a Daniel Radcliffe film of. And the film is okay. It's not perfect, but the book is really good. And I think the movie does an okay job adapting it. It's not a complicated story, but it is a little out there. It's out there enough. But Lock and Key, written by Joe Hill. It is, the best way to describe it, it is the story of a family that has had a tragedy in their recent past. And they move to a new town, and there's several kids in the family, and it deals with these kids dealing with, the worst thing you could have possible, which is the death of a parent at a young age. And the ages of these kids are, I think it's, I don't know exactly, but it's like 7 to 17. And while they're going through all the things you would go through, moving to a new town, having lost your father, having lost your mother, and then dealing with, the stress and the pressure that is on your father and your family, they also move into a mansion that is haunted. And throughout the series, they find these keys, and each key has something different that it does. So, for example, one key when you put it into a door, you can then open a door anywhere else in the world. There's another key where when you put it into a door and unlock it, you can astral project yourself. So you basically become a ghost outside of your body. And then someone says, I got the Transformers book. If anyone wants to trade for a classic, message me. Which Transformers book? I guess that'd be the question. There's a couple. So I think what this book does really well is there's some great horror elements and there's some really good mystery elements, because you're also kind of learning quite a bit about the history of the house. And at the same time, these teenagers and children are dealing with, the loss of a parent and trying to go to high school, and also just trying to, exist while they're also solving these mysteries inside a house. And Heather just joined. Heather can probably give plenty of great comic books suggestions. So if Heather ever wants to... if Heather ever wants to come on the show, if this becomes a show, probably not. People probably hate my Facebook Live. I don't know. It's all I have, guys. So anyways, thanks for watching, River. There is, I believe there's 6 or 7 of these. I actually haven't read the last one. It's a series that I've really, really savored. I read the first 4 within like 3 weeks. And by this point, they were finishing up the series. And I really, oh no, it said video pause, but it didn't. I just, that was me acting. I've held off reading the last 2 because I really just wanted to savor the end. I also believe there's at least one other one-shot in the series that just came out, and there's also I think there was even like maybe a short story book. But anyways, River said I should give a rating. Well, I should give a rating to these. Why the Last Man as a series as a whole, it's like 10 out of 10. It's really, really good. Sex Criminals, I've only read the first 2. I really enjoyed. I think it's somewhat simple. The art fits the story really well. There's kind of some cool, interesting effects that they put in there. It's almost kind of like Photoshoppy effects, which stand out from the art a bit. But I think the writing in it is a little bit better than the art. So I want to be subjective, being that I gave Why the Last Man a 10. I would give Sex Criminals, I'd give it a 7. It seems like it's a low rating, but I'm gonna set the bar pretty high. Lock and Key I haven't finished as a series. I would say there's definitely some of the graphic novels which I liked quite a bit more. I'll be honest, there's times in the story where the artwork is in a certain way where I would kind of have to revisit which character I was looking at. I know that sounds really bad, but there would be a time I would be like reading something, maybe not from the first issue, but there'd be a time where I'd be reading part of a story and I'd have to like flip back to see exactly what character I was looking at, because there's just a lot of, I don't know if I can give you an example. So like there's an example that's like a bus driver, and there's like a dead dude in the background. But then if you just hold on, a lot of people wear hoods and hats and everything in it, but then like you see this character that's like a girl, but if you imagine her in like the bus driver's outfit, like if you're just looking at the face, it's kind of similar enough that's, I don't know, maybe I'm just a weirdo, but I like the art. I think it serves the story, but I've never been as a big a fan of the art. Lock and Key, rating wise, since I haven't finished the series, I'm going to say for what I've read, it's like 8.5 out of 10. Maybe that rises to like a 9 or a 9.5 once I finish the series. I don't know. It's definitely recommended. This one, for age ranges, I would say anyone over 12 years old. There's some graphic violence in there, but there's nothing that they wouldn't see on like a CW show. I could be wrong. I'm maybe a little more lenient for that kind of stuff. There's definitely a lot of blood. There's a lot of kind of tense situations, but overall, I mean, it's nothing you wouldn't see elsewhere. So the next one is going to be something that's going to be a little harder to find, but I have to put this out there because when I was looking on my shelf for comics to grab for this, I can't do recommendation lists without showing Sam Noir. This is actually a comic that is done by a local creative team. It was published through Image Comics, so that's kind of a cool success story for them. It's Eric Anderson's the writer, Manny Tremblay is the artist, and the best way to describe it is a samurai samurai tale done in a film noir setting. So it's black and white. I mean, it's anything you would want from, like, if you're a fan of Kill Bill, you would have to check this out. I mean, the art is like totally incredible. And story-wise, you know, it's told like a film noir book or movie. What are you doing? So, yeah, I mean, it's dark, it's contrasty, the shading's really cool. It is all black and white. There is a couple of volumes in the series, or actually there might just be one graphic novel and several other issues. But anyways, this is volume 1, and I think it's hard to come by. I think it is out of print. I know in the past I've seen them on Amazon. I have also seen them in local comic book shops. I've even bought original art from this series. I've been lucky that Manny is very active in the artist and comic community. He just recently he just launched a new Kickstarter for another book that he had done with, I believe it was with Image, called PX. So if you search for PX comic on Kickstarter, you can find that. But Sam Noir, I got to give it a 9 out of 10 for volume 1. The subsequent issues that aren't in volume 1, again, I don't remember if they're collected or if they're just in single issues. I like those a little bit more. So if you can find those, it is definitely worth finding. So I don't know if they're available digitally, but it's kind of a must-have. Like I said, if you're a Kill Bill fan, you've got to find it. As far as age, there is some graphic violence, but it is very stylized. And Heather makes a good point. She said there's just one trade. Check the used section at your local bookstores, comic stores. PX is in print and available at your local comic book shop. So yeah, definitely check that. And Manny himself has Fish Tank books. I believe if you search for Fish Tank books, you'll be able to find those. You can find all his other books. If you're in the Spokane area, or, you know, I think Manny gets around to some other local conventions, definitely check out his booth. There has not been a single thing that Manny has put out that I haven't absolutely loved. I mean, I could probably do an entire review for stuff that Manny's done. So age-wise, there's graphic violence, but man, this is like, again, I would probably be terrible at raising kids, but I would say, you know, ages 11 and up for boys, especially because, you know, again, they're seeing more violent stuff than this in the Avenger movies, for the most part. Since it's black and white, you know, it's stylized, you're really not getting, you know, it doesn't look like gore. It never feels graphic, and it always feels like it's in the sense of the story. And I mean, again, like, that's like the coolest ever. So that's that. I was just being stupid on Facebook again, as always. So I guess for my rating for the matcha green tea sandwich, I have to say I would give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoy this, but I gotta be fair. So I think it'd be too easy to give everything a 10 out of 10. Maybe the only thing that holds it back is it could be a little more exotic. You know, sometimes when you get food from other countries, you want it to kind of taste like something you've never had before. Kind of like when you have bubble tea. I don't know. So 8 out of 10, definitely recommended. I guess River, if you're out there, we will have to review some food. Maybe we'll make a trip to the Asian market. Heather says, is great reading for all ages reading, girls and boys. What's of? Could be wasabi ice cream inside. That would be exotic. You know, I know there is wasabi ice cream. I have had that. Oh, PX. Okay, she says PX. Yeah, PX is totally all ages. It definitely looks very kiddie on the outside. It looks like something you'd see on like Cartoon Network. It's amazing writing. Again, Manny is like top notch. Manny needs to be, you know, it's a shame that Manny's not one of the top creatives out there. But you know, he's still putting out amazing work. Yeah, so maybe we'll do some other reviews some other time. But I guess thanks for watching. And if anyone wants to come on and suggest some great reads or some great eats, let me know.